Hi, my name is Sam H. I'm an alcoholic and I'm super grateful to be here. I haven't been to 5D since pre-pandemic, which I feel like is a little ironic, but I hope that I have something to share that you can relate to. And if not, please go to another meeting and try again. You'll usually find something. If it's not me, it'll be someone else. So hi again, I'm Sam. My sobriety date is December 7th, 2015. You all inspired me to look at my day count, and I have 2,408 days sober, which just seems like a lot of days. I have a sponsor. She knows she's my sponsor. I sponsor other women. I have a home group. I do service. I call other people in the program. I've worked the traditions and the concepts, and most importantly, the steps. And I try to practice the principles in all my affairs. And I show up for service when asked. And the reason I mention all of those things is they are what keep me sober today. So, like many of us, I didn't exactly have the most easy time being a human being. I felt a little awkward. I felt a little out of step. I've said this before. I've heard a lot of other people say it. It felt like, there was a manual, and sometimes I felt like I had a chapter missing, and sometimes I felt like I didn't have the manual at all. And I just kind of went through my young adulthood feeling like a little bit off. I'm a second generation alcoholic. That doesn't really mean that I was like going to be an alcoholic, but it definitely made me more aware of where I needed to be when like the time came. I knew that you guys had coffee and cake and you helped people fix their problems. I have been coming around for a while. I can confirm that there has been coffee and cake. And while you have not fixed my problems, you have made it a lot easier to deal with them. So when I was in middle school, my dad relapsed and I had to become a grown-up very fast. And my parents loved me so much and they did their very best. But there are some things that like happen, and lots of people have things happen. And for me, that meant that I had to be the superstar. I was the perfect kid. I was the overachiever. From that point forward, I was like largely unsupervised. And I put my head down and I did what I needed to do to like scrape by on honor roll and like be in the AP classes, be the smart kid, and have my parents look at me and be like, she's fine. And I put a lot of my worth and value into like how well I did in school, because as long as I was doing well in school, like that was a positive reflection of me as a person. And I did this and I pushed and I pushed and I pushed. And I ended up getting into a university. I ended up being able to afford to go. I ended up putting a lot of my heart and soul into going to this place. And I walked out of my house with my parents. My parents at that point had been separated. So there were like two houses. I walked out of being supervised by my parents. And I said, it's my turn to have fun now. And from the moment I left my parents to the moment I got sober was a period of like less than 18 months. Like my alcoholism was very much like fuck around and find out. And I fucked around and I found out. I wasn't very good at being an alcoholic because I looked at my relationships like they were strategic partnerships. It was quid pro quo. Like I did something for you, you did something for me. And I genuinely liked the people that I was like strategically partnering with, but I was like, I thought there was like a mutual understanding, like I get you into a party, you get me into a party. Like I help you do X, like there's like a reward of Y. Like there's a mutual agreement. And people don't do friendship like that. That is not how you like make and keep friends. And so it became very apparent to a lot of people, within a couple of months that I was strategically partnering with them and not investing in my friendships. The other thing that I was doing was that because I wanted to maximize my chances of being somewhere with alcohol and like fun and people, I was pretending to be like 6 different versions of myself with 6 different friend groups. And when you do that, eventually all the friend groups move on without you because they're hanging out 4 days a week, and you physically cannot hang out with 6 different friend groups 4 days a week and still like be a functioning human being. But I tried. Like my freshman year, first semester, I went to the dining hall like 6 times a day. I wanted to be in multiple different friend groups. I wanted multiple people to like me. Like I wanted to be well liked. And instead what happened was I dwindled down the people that I was close to. So we have done like 3 months of school. My parents have shown up once to campus, my mom and her partner. And the first time they meet me on campus, this is something I actually just very recently remembered. The first time they show up to meet me, they drop my brother off to like stay in my dorm with me, and I'm drunk. Now, this is a point where I didn't think I had a problem, but why did I show up to meet? My parents have been there once and I'm drunk. You know, I'm in charge of my younger brother who's underage and I'm drunk. We start there. We go from that to concussion to drinking with concussion. My sponsor likes to call this alcoholic calculus of like when you're allowed to drink after like a medical injury. So if like the doctor says X number of months, that really means that you can have like one, and then you keep doing the calculus until it becomes a number that you can live with. And I don't even think I asked, I just started drinking. I was like, don't ask questions you don't want to know the answer to. So I come back and I'm like, clearly the solution is to join a sorority. So I joined a sorority and I started dating a frat bro. I hitched my wagon to the wrong people. The sorority was not really interested in partying. They were like watch Pride and Prejudice and like write each other like little notes about how much we liked each other and drink a glass of wine kind of girls. That sounds lovely. When I got sober, it was really nice to be in that sorority. As like baby alcoholic Sam, that sucked. So I did a frat bro because I'm like, at least then I can go to their house and like they'll have booze. Nope. He was into another kind of substance that I just wasn't a fan of. So had no alcohol in his house ever, never went to the frat house to drink. Failure. Dumped him. Got off that horse as soon as possible. Mistake. Now the frats don't like me. Now I'm in like weird three-way mean girl calls because I had this other thing, which is that I thought that if you gossiped about someone behind their back because you cared about them, right? It's like that little line in step 6 that says we tried to like explain someone when really like we're still engaging in character assassination. I had a really bad habit of that. So now I like have been sat down by other girls in my sorority. We are now like 60 days out from getting sober. And I have been sat down and I have been told that I'm a disgrace and I should just drop out of my sorority and leave. I wasn't even doing anything that was like that bad. Like I wasn't the person who was like passing out at the party. I wasn't the girl who was getting alcohol poisoning. I wasn't the girl getting transported. I just was not a very nice person when I engaged in my defects. When I drank or when I was in the pursuit of alcohol, I was just not a very nice person because my priority was me. I was selfish and self-centered. My resentments and my fears got the better of me. And I wasn't nice to other people in a way that was like genuine. I was fake because I wanted something from them. We have some stuff go down. I do some really like messed up emotional like manipulation stuff. I lose people. I drunkenly apologize to one of the girls that I have like done something really fucked up to. And she says like, you're going to get like, your issues are going to eat you alive. You're going to end up alone. And also you're a conceited bitch. What is the thing that I pull from this statement? Is it, oh, I should get help? Or like, oh, I need help? No, it's that she spelled conceited wrong in the text message. So I call my mom to be like, haha, mom, like clearly I'm better than this girl. At least I know how to spell conceited with autocorrect on my phone. I'm doing the best. And my mom pulls out page 82 that I am a tornado ripping up people's lives and destroying relationship and asks me if that sounds like my problem. And she suggests I go to another 12-step fellowship because at this point, even though there was like that one time where I showed up drunk, my mom had seen no other evidence that I am suffering from alcoholism. So she tries to send me to a sister program because she doesn't know that this is a problem I have. I say, ugh, that's 30 minutes away. That's too far. And I end up going to an AA meeting across the street. I tell the girls in my sorority that are in my dorm that I'm going, and I say, what if we all meet at like a sorority activity and got sober together? They said no. And one of them opened up the big book I had from my dad because, you know, at some point I was going to end up in a 12-step program. Like that was obvious. The question was not if, it was which one. You know, we have a lot of great contenders out there, and it turned out it was this one. She opens it to the back of the book. There's one of the stories. It talks about girls getting drunk and drinking jungle juice. And my friend says, hey, that sounds like us. And I say, yeah, that's really far in the book. I'm sure we'll get there. I go to my first meeting, it's across the street, and they read that chapter. Now, I don't know it, but this is like my first exposure to a power greater than myself because I get hit with a weird feeling. And I don't know why, but I keep coming back. And at my third meeting, I say some crazy stuff about, we've already talked about a lot of the sorority stuff. I don't need to keep covering it. I say some crazy stuff to someone who asks me like what my meeting plans are for the rest of the week. She asked if I have a sponsor and I say no. And she looks me up and down and she goes, this should not be left unsupervised. And I said, yeah. And I got some supervision the next day and I asked someone random to sponsor me. And she is currently my sponsor. And that woman took me through the 12 step. And that woman taught me a lot. She also taught me to shut up. I talked a lot when I was newly sober. And one of the greatest gifts I got was the power of not talking, because I was so busy thinking about what I thought you wanted to hear that I wasn't hearing what you had to say. And that is still a defect that I struggle with today. I am selfish and self-centered. I want you to think good things about me. Like when I go to a new meeting, my first thought is like, how do I convey that I'm like super sober and like have all my shit together and like I'm definitely on top of this, because like I want you to know that I'm like, I've got it. The good news is that my first thought doesn't have to be my last thought. And usually I'll have like a second or third thought. And the thought that has always really struck with me is someone said in a meeting that every single person in the rooms has something to teach you. And when I have that thought, my question is, okay, I'm going to listen to every share and I'm going to figure out what that person has to teach me. And then I listen. So this person takes me through the 12 steps and we go through and we do 1, 2, 3. We go straight into 4. Someone has told me that after their 5th step, they had a beautiful, amazing spiritual experience. For some reason, I think this is going to be like drugs. So I am itching to get through to 5, and I hit 5 and I just find trauma. I find so much trauma. I find that I had buried stuff in a box deep in my soul, and it took a 5th step to open it up. And post my 5th step, I felt terrible. And then I started to do 6 and 7 for the first time. And by the time I had gotten to 8, that first round, that load got a little lighter. And as I started to work through my first 9 steps, my load got a little lighter. And I got to do really incredible things in sobriety as my load got lighter. I went to Ireland sober and I studied abroad. I interned in New York City and I got to meet the awesome young people in New York City and see the kinds of meetings and fellowship that they have. I got to see great people and like great sobriety in Ireland. The 6 months I spent in Ireland turned me into like a weird big book thumper. But like I left Ireland, I could tell you like if it was in the 164, I had a really good sense of like what page it was on. I did not have that skill before. I got to experience hosting young people's conventions. And most recently, I've had the joy of getting involved in general service. And one of the really incredible things is that like through this process, other parts of my life changed. My first higher power was an executive director board of sober women because I was not good at the God thing. And so I would call down this list of 10 women and I would just call all of them down the list until like 3 or 4 of them picked up and then ask them what I should do. Like instead of praying, I would just call these women. But the thing is that when you pool a group of like sober women who have been sober for a really long time repeatedly, like the decisions you start to make as a person get significantly better really fast. And from there, I started to develop other conceptions of a higher power that worked for me. I was never religious. I'm half Catholic, half Jewish. I like to say it's a cashew, half Catholic, half Jewish, 100% nuts. And I've gotten a really great chance to explore what religion might mean to me in my sobriety. When COVID hit, I repaired my relationship with both of my parents in a way that my 9-step amends didn't. I unpacked, that trauma that I talked about, that it was in that box. I carried some of that stuff around for years after that first 5th step, but I have like chipped away at it slowly through doing 10-step inventories, from communicating with my sponsor, from speaking to other people and hearing their experience, strength, and hope. I worked on like months of inventory with my sponsor before having a conversation with my dad about the relationship I felt like we didn't have. And you know what happened from that conversation? My dad and I now talk multiple times a week. Like it changed the dynamic of that relationship. My brother has gone through a lot of really terrible stuff in terms of his mental health, and I have consistently been a safe person for him to call. There are people inside and outside of the program who have called me with their really serious business, and there are people inside and outside of the program that I've called with my really serious business and have been able to like find that community and fellowship. I had a seizure 2 weeks ago. It wasn't my first one. It was my second one. We don't know what happened. And I had women from around Connecticut offer to drive up to an hour to pick me up and take me to other places. People who lived out 45 minutes or an hour away from me said, if you have an appointment and no one else can come get you, I would be so happy to like plan ahead for it. Like, what? that is the kind of fellowship that I did not know when I got sober that I was going to get to experience. That was not the kind of fellowship that at 3 years sober I thought I was going to experience. And I have just had a really incredible journey. It has sucked sometimes. I had an emotional bottom at 4 years and I had to redo what I was doing. The sponsor that I just told you about, who was my first sponsor, wasn't my sponsor the whole time. I had to call her at 4 years and say, I'm struggling and I'm stuck and I need help. And we reworked the steps. But the thing that pulled me out of that was recognizing that I had slashed things from that list that I told you at the beginning. Things had fallen off. I went to less and less meetings. I called less and less people. I did less and less service. And for me to come back to where I needed to be happy, joyous, and free, I had to add each one of those things back on. And for context, when I hit 4 years, it was December 2019. So I had to do all of that at the start of the global pandemic. And I did it. And I worked hard and I put time into my sobriety, and it's paid dividends in my life and the people around me's lives. I have a boyfriend who's never seen me drink, and he can't imagine the kind of person that I used to be. And like the partnerships that I get to have, they're just incredible. But I just want to say, if you didn't hear something again from me, please just keep coming back. And if you heard something that like really resonated with you and you want to talk, feel free to shoot me a message. But thank you all for being a part of like my day today and keeping me on the beam today, because I was really exhausted and I wasn't sure I wanted to be here, but I came anyway because I wanted to be of service and I wanted to be here with all of you. So thank you so much.